Oh, I didn't press records. Okay. So, and actually, so here we are with sacred anger. And actually, the piece that really started to get my attention with the stomach piece was the inflammation. And the other piece that I had connected up through my Akashic record work was inflammation. I mean, this is a word where we hear more and more about inflammation, was global warming. And how our bodies, our feminine bodies, are such a map for Mother Earth, right? We're very intrinsically linked to that connection, and the heat that is like rising on the planet, and then all the hot spots in my body. And it kind of brought my attention to where inflammation was sitting in my body. And I want to just speak this and share this because it might be a piece that can serve you on your journey too with anger. So it was both like I had to address it at the emotional level, at the spiritual level, but even like at the physical body level. And so I really had to switch up my diet and look at how to get to the root of the inflammation that was sitting in my body. And I believe it was from the anger, from anger that had been lingering, that I needed to address, that was festering, but then also from the food choices that I was making. So, you know, a lot of acidic foods, but a lot of like coffee and wine and sugar and white breads. And I, you know, I eat pretty healthy too. It was mostly vegetarian diet. So I had to really look at those pieces. And the other kind of tool that I wanted to bring in as well. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask me in the Facebook group, or just share any pieces that you're linking up in terms of the scope of your journey with anger or rage. The journal is going to take you deeper into this, of course. Something else that I've discovered is flower essences. I've been working with them for many years, but the one flower essence that I discovered is milk thistle flower essence. And it's actually amazing for clearing out anger in the system. So if this is a piece and you want some, you know, if you're just looking for some different support pieces, flower essences offer vibrational healing. And I had a day or two where I was like sitting in some anger, and I had grabbed my milk thistle, and I hadn't really worked with it yet, but it cleared that anger out of my system. It started to just like move it out. Flower essences are amazing working on the emotional and spiritual body, and it cleared it out within a day or two. So just in case that speaks to anyone. And without further ado, why don't we go ahead and sink in and see what is ready to come through today. It's funny, before the call, when what I was really feeling was tingles along my spine, like electricity, like just like almost like the prickles of like heated like anger. And I think I was really feeling it just from like the electricity of like what wanted to come through today. So again, I'll be really interested. So let's go ahead and we'll sink in. You can close your eyes, and we're gonna bring our focus to our inner world. And let's go bring that focus down even just a bit more to the energetic womb space. So it's a couple inches below the belly button, and we're just going to breathe into the womb, taking a breath in through the nose, down into the belly, and out through the mouth. And I like to kind of like place my hands over my womb. I'll take another breath in. We'll bring that breath to the count of 3. And then we'll go ahead and see the energetic womb space fill up with a beautiful golden light. And we're going to see that golden light swish and swirl, bringing it through the sacral and just letting it break up and dissolve and transmute any old stagnant energy, any anger, any grief, anything that feels dark or heavy in the energetic womb space. And we'll go ahead and we're going to bring that gold light and everything that's being transmuted down through the core of our body, down through yoni, down through all the layers of earth and crust and soil and root and rock, right down to the core of Mother Earth. And we're just going to let it all be transmuted, all be transmuted. to this beautiful, raw, creative, radiant energy. And we're going to drop our gold tendril of light around a piece of jade crystal. And we're going to let it anchor us in just a little bit more. And we're going to call on that Shakti, that earth energy. We're going to call it up through all the layers of earth and root and soil and rock. And we're going to call it through the bottoms of the feet and the legs and back into the sacral. Taking a breath into the sacral. And on the exhale, just letting all that energy flow throughout the body. We'll go ahead to the gold door that sits about 50 feet above the head, and we'll just let that drop down beautiful white light. And we'll see that white light cascade down, 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 entering in through the top of the head, and then just kind of like washing all over us too. Washing all over us, swishing and swirling around us, cleansing and clearing the entire chakra system until you see your chakra system kind of just start to polish up and shine. Transmuting everything that feels energetically heavy and complete, moving it back up to the door to be transmuted by divine love and light, or to divine love and light. And then I'm going to call down the temples of divine love, light, truth, abundance, wisdom, and power to descend around us now, calling in our guides, angels, masters, teachers, the guardians, the goddesses to be present, and for truth and accuracy to be obtained for the highest good of everyone on the call today and everyone who'll be listening to the call in the future. Asking this to be a divinely protected space where only the highest frequencies of love and light shall exist. Calling in Goddess Kali, Goddess Isis, Goddess Ayana, to hold a beautiful protective container for us here today. Banishing all negative influences, should there be any. Asking Archangel Michael to please clear out all illusion, all cords, hooks, energetic attachments, any mind viruses, any emotions, thought patterns that really are not ours, asking it all to be transmuted. And so it is. And we'll bring our focus to the heart chakra. So just at the center of the chest, seeing a magenta rose bloom open. And at the center of that chest, we're going to see the golden grid of the flower of life begin to expand and swirl out from the heart space, located at the center of the chest. And we're going to let this pure wisdom and high frequency light, the radiant divine substance of all of creation that is interwoven into all of life, begin to permeate and infuse itself within us, out from us, all around us, and into the Akashic field. We're going to let that light continue to grow, expand, and interpermeate with the physical and non-physical reality that exists before us, all around us, and within us. We're going to continue to let it flower and expand from the heart chakra. And we're just going to see, sense, feel now as the doors to the Akasha and all the wisdom and love of the Akasha open to us now. I'm already getting some pieces that are coming through, which is why I kind of paused there. We're just going to allow ourselves to feel held in the sacred energy of the Akasha. And so it is. And so it is. Oh, okay. Well, interesting. It's the first emotion that came through was actually not anger, but grief. And grief and anger can be really intimately connected. But the message that came through, it's almost like I'm seeing all of us really desiring safe and sacred spaces to like weep and to mourn. And I think this is really important, you know, even like collectively, it's like we are mourning the loss of an old world. Like these are major unprecedented times in the planet's evolution. And so giving ourselves the permission to drop in. And so even, you know, whether it's like we're mourning on like, you know, the loss of the old world, or maybe we're moving through, I know a lot of you showing up in this space are moving through, you know, personal transformations. There's you know, the grief that comes along with releasing the old. And I'm seeing us just kind of like weeping at the feet of and actually I keep seeing feet, but I'm not sure who the feet belong to. And I just want to kind of tune into that because it's a very, very large presence. Okay, so interesting. So it's a very large angelic presence, large, like as big as like us, like I don't even know, like a 10-story apartment building or something like that. But it's being able to drop into these safe and sacred spaces. And the message is we can't forget that we're not doing this all alone, that we have helpers on the other side who are there for us, there to hold us, even when we don't feel strong enough to move forward. But the piece that I just want to highlight around this grief is that, you know, and it's so I love the way the program came through. You know, transmission one was all about pleasure, you know, just kind of coming back to like our senses, but in a way that feels really good. And it can be that beautiful healing balm that like allows us to come back home to ourselves and start to drop into beautiful and deeper layers. And now it's time to be able to give ourselves, you know, this permission to drop in and feel some of these deeper emotions that have been wanting to get our attention. And sometimes it's like, it feels like I think we all have the capacity, every one of you have the capacity to go to this place now. It's just a matter of being, knowing that it's okay to like weep, and that it's okay to wallow, that it's okay to weep, that it's okay to wallow, that it's okay to recalibrate, right? That it's okay to take some time out of life and have our emotions and be with our emotions, because that's part of the process of being able to transmute our emotions, right? Where we can be with them, where we can feel them, where we can move through them, where we can release them. But we live in oftentimes a world where it hasn't been okay, or where society tells us it's not okay to rest into those spaces. But my sense is, and the message that's coming through is, it's so much about, you know, being able to renew, like at a deep and profound spiritual level, being able to feel a sense of renewal. And that happens by giving ourselves the permission and the space to drop in. The piece that I'm being reminded of is in ancient, you know, mostly Aboriginal cultures, when there was like a loss. And it's so interesting that we're touching on grief as a first primary emotion. We will definitely hit on this anger and truth piece. But the women, when they were emotional, or when there was a deep loss, I mean, they were sent to wail. Like they could spend, and were given permission and supported to wail. And it was part of the healing for the entire community. And by wailing, I mean like the big, like the big, messy, like wailing, the deep, great grief, like the expression of deep grief that could last a day or two or three, because they realized the healing power of the spaces that, when provided, what it gave, and how profound and powerful it was. Okay, good. That feels really complete. That message was really important that came through. I'll be interested to touch base with everyone in the Facebook group. I just see where that's landing with you. Yeah, and I'm being shown tears, and the beauty of tears, and like the weeping. And I think sometimes with my own anger, isn't it? And I'm getting the message that it's like grief and anger, isn't it? All kind of interwoven. Like we can be so angry that we want to cry, that we're so sad that we're angry. And I'm being shown kind of like the helix. I think I'm getting my words mixed up, but it's almost like two strands kind of wrapping around each other. And the way that I'm being shown that is, I think that in this space, and for those of you that have stepped into this container, the grief and the anger it's very much combined. And I'm being shown Oh, that makes, okay. So that makes sense. And the other piece that's coming through around this is it's water and fire. Water and fire, water and fire, and how they can weave together and how they can be such a beautiful partnership. And, you know, and it's funny, and this is where toxic masculinity can often show up even for women, like even for us, the toxic masculinity being the patriarchal consciousness that can kind of, it permeates even our awareness. But I'm getting this sense of like that being strong, having to have it all together, pushing down our emotions, but the beauty and the sacredness of the sacral tear. And the sacral being, it is the water center. It is our emotional center. So the beauty of the sacral tear, I love that. And it being able to give ourselves a permission to be with our tears, to be with our emotions. I'm just seeing all of these tears just turning into like raindrops, like just like the most beautiful mist of like rain, like pouring down from the heavens and soothing in the most gentle, beautiful, pleasurable way our bodies, our spirit, our emotions, and our minds. But being able to allow ourselves, it's almost like the visual that I'm getting is like this big, beautiful teardrop. And you can go ahead and visualize a teardrop. And it's interesting too, because if you turn the teardrop sideways, the teardrop actually looks like the womb, like this like ovally shape of that the womb has. But I'm seeing this teardrop. I'm just being reminded a little bit yesterday, Jen, I know we connected. I'm just being reminded a little bit of like the journey that we did one-on-one with this teardrop piece. But seeing this teardrop and feeling this teardrop, taking the teardrop and letting that teardrop, we have a ton of geese about to fly over. You'll probably hear that. And letting this teardrop speak to you. I'm going to give you a moment. I just want everyone to have their own moment with this big, beautiful teardrop and just see how the field wants to speak to you and what the wisdom of the tear is for you. So I'm seeing this beautiful tear turn into like a womb-like pond. And the pond, though, it's shaped, the pond is, this body of water. You can go ahead and visualize it in front of you because I can see where this is going, because it actually represents like the womb and the sacral. And the pond is not a shallow pond. This pond is very deep. Like it is this pond that just goes like so deep, like into the core of like Mother Earth kind of pond. But the pond is like ancient and the vibration is healing. And there's a creative life force that's interwoven into kind of like the matrix of the water. And if we go back, and it kind of reminds me of, you know, at that point on the planet where the planet was covered in water, right? Where it was primarily just this beautiful womb where we only had sea creatures, right? There was like no life on Earth yet. And so this primordial kind of like body of water. And I want you to walk over to the pond, and I just want you to walk around the pond, and I want you to notice what you notice about the depth and the intensity of this. I'm calling it a pond, but it doesn't even feel like the right word. And I know why this is coming through, but just go ahead and just feel your way around the edge. What does it spark in you? And this is a very dynamic nature of the element of water, is that it can be so purifying, and it can bring such a sense of renewal and inspiration, and a washing away of the old, you know, and it can connect us to the flow of our emotions. But there's a depth and a power to water. I mean, that can be so murky and dark. And underneath that murky darkness is the unknown, and, or, you know, the great mystery. So the invitation with this pool of water, right? It's like, it's so dark, it's so deep, like we don't know what's under there. So the invitation with this body of water is to be comfortable in the dark, to be comfortable in the dark, to be comfortable in the mystery, to be comfortable in the unknown, and to be okay with all of the fluid aspects of the emotional realm. So go ahead, of course, in this space, nothing's going to happen. So we can explore just the feeling and sensations and the layers that we're being invited to in this space. So go ahead and, you know, I would invite you in your visualization, the way I'm seeing myself is I'm like disrobing. I'm like disrobing, and this feels so sacred, a sacred invitation, almost like this beautiful, like feminine, like baptism, like an ancient rite of passage. And I'm being asked to come into this body of water, come into this body of water, this salty, magical, this creative life force, this emotionally intelligent, raw, creative power. And just allow yourself to be in that body of water. And I see it kind of warm, and there's like steam kind of coming up. And to just be in that space, to just be in that space, to be in the space of like unknown, like we don't know what's under our feet. We don't know how deep this goes. But to allow all the nutrients of this watery, potent portal of activated womb consciousness to just seep into your body and into your awareness. And the message that's really coming through around this is safety. Is safety. It's a knowingness that even in the spaces of the unknown, even in the space of the great mystery, even in the space of the dark void, when navigating some of the deeper emotions, that we're safe. And the word safe is really getting my attention. And I can feel us transitioning over to exploring anger. And we're just, as I'm speaking, you can go ahead and you're going to continue to float around in this activated cocoon of water, that you are safe. You know, and being able to create safe spaces for us to sink into, to navigate the depth of our inner world is absolutely key. Absolutely key. For us to know that we are always, as sacred women, held. And at the end of the call, we'll talk a little bit about how to, you know, wherever you're at in the scope of your journey, there's always greater ways to create an internal sense of safety through different practices. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and invite you now. This water is going to actually, I'm seeing it like kind of taking us on a little journey, but not that far. But it's going to kind of turn into like this beautiful like waterfall effect. So the earth kind of opens up and there's this beautiful waterfall effect. And we're just going to kind of like slide down the waterfall into a grotto. into this grotto. And we're going to, you'll see kind of like, there's like sand and rock, and there's one more waterfall, and you can go ahead when you're ready, and you're gonna walk through the waterfall. As you walk through the waterfall, it's just one last, just kind of like letting it cleanse and purify. Just this washing away of the old. We're just letting it soothe, cleanse, clear. And the message really is, I'm seeing this, like this grief as like this watery layer. And I wouldn't be surprised if over the next week, and it's the Akashic records kind of, they're really powerful at kind of unearthing different layers at a subconscious level that we've been avoiding. If you feel like crying, cry, right? If you feel like grieving, grieve. If you feel like mourning, mourn over the next week. And it feels like often what happens is that over top of anger is grief. And if we can allow and give ourselves permission to feel the feelings of that, then we're more easily able to access the deeper layers of our anger and our rage. So you can go ahead, and as you move through the waterfall, you can go ahead and see the beach, and there's still water all around, and I'm seeing the vastness of the ocean. And again, just kind of like that very like raw, creative, like power and potential of the ocean, of the water. But I'm also seeing a fire. So you can go ahead, and as you're journeying with me, you can see the fire. And you can sit down beside the fire. And as you sit down beside the fire, your guides are going to come over. A guide, it'll be a guide will come over, and your guide's just going to wrap you in something beautiful and warm. Right? We have all of these helpers in spirit, all of these beings, all of these sacred allies who are there, who want to work on our behalf, who are there to guide us and to support us. So that's awesome. I just saw myself, I'm just like wrapped in this, like kind of like these furs. Okay, so let me tune in. So the dialogue is just switching here, and I want to find where everything wants to go from here. And while I do that, let's just kind of just breathe, just sitting in the space, tuning into your body. That's always an important piece. You know, seeing where it feels dense, seeing where it feels heavy. Beautiful. I have to say, the energy in this space has really shifted. There's like like the water feels calm. And chime in, like if you feel like you just want to share a little bit about the space, in this space, how you're feeling in this moment. I'd love to hear, but if not, you're doing your thing, totally fine. All right, so the first piece that's coming through around anger is, I am seeing a return to our wild feminine nature. I am seeing, like, around the fire are all of, I'm going to say us, all of us, but also I'm seeing all these wild women. All these wild women, it's nighttime, dancing around this fire, and they have become unleashed in their expression. They are unbound. They have total freedom. And just, you know, letting yourself feel the energy of that. You know, I'm giving you these playlists every week. This week is an anger playlist. This may or may not work for this particular scenario and how it's coming through. But this is a connection to your wild feminine nature, right? And the other piece that's coming through too is about community. And that's one of the things I find too, just talking to women, is that, especially what's going on the planet right now, is that there's a real disconnect from community. from like circles of other women, and we're feeling it. And it's actually interesting because I think it's a time where we need it like more than ever. Just letting yourself tap into that energy of wild feminine. What does that mean to you? What is the archetype that's showing up for you? What does she look like? Who is your wild feminine woman? Who is she? And I would go ahead and just, and I know I said just to relax and receive, and absolutely do that. But I think, I forgot to the journaling part. And if you want to create while we're doing this, you're more than welcome to do that too. But just get a sense of her. We have all these different like archetypal energies that we have access to. I want to know this woman that we're being invited to explore. She's a key to our freedom. In some of the free calls I did, we were exploring like our dark feminine archetype, kind of like the bitch archetype. Like there's all of these, but this woman feels so natural, so free, so liberated, so in her raw, divine, and sacred power as a woman. And the thing with anger is where we have disassociated and disconnected from that raw, primal, wild feminine aspect, is often where anger will start to fester, right? Because that is like such a true part of our human and feminine expression. And I'm just getting, that I'm being shown the festering anger. The festering anger is the suppression, is the limitation. And I'm seeing like all these little fires. I don't know if you've seen a picture of the West Coast burning right now when I looked at that chart. And this again is like where our bodies can often like mirror what's happening on the planet. But I'm seeing all these little festering, very quiet under the surface, sitting in our jaws, clenched in our fists, tight hips, right? Tight solar plexus. So it's all these little fires, all these little festering fires that are like lingering under the surface. One by one, where we've dismissed ourselves, where we've dismissed what we value, what we dismissed, what we want, where we've dismissed a deeper truth, where we've dismissed a boundary. All these little festering angers. So I want you to just go and just visualize. My whole body is tingling right now, but just visualize where the festering fires are. So like I can feel the festering fires in my jaw right now, right? Around where I hold back from speaking my truth. And in the group this week, I think this is really fun piece. You can explore it in your journal. Absolutely. I plan to pop in there, and I want to dig into my personal truth a little bit more with everyone who's in there as an invitation for you to do the same. But I am feeling the fester definitely in my jaw. Notice where you notice it in your body. Go ahead and just take a moment and scan. And breathe. And now I'm seeing the symbol of the spiral again, because it's really hard to put out every fire. So this is the thing with inflammation, is if we've got all these festering little fires, right, that have been brewing and festering under the surface, and we've ignored them and swept them under the carpet, right? But they just still keep burning. And then the little fires link into another fire that turns into a bigger fire, right? And then parts of ourselves become inflamed. And instead of it just being, frustration, it's now anger, or it's now rage. And the reason that I'm seeing, a lot of women too, when they're feeling anger and they're feeling rage, and I can totally relate to this, is that we want it taken care of like now. Like we want it done now, all of it done now. The spiral again is showing me where I see all these little fires like along the spiral, the thing is that it's like we have to do the journey. We have to go to the first place on the spiral where the fire's getting our attention, where the anger's getting our attention. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do I want to look and see what, in terms of what I can entangle energetically through our records, I want to see what the first fire is, what's coming up. Now you have the Akashic Journal, and we're just remembering that it's like putting out the fires and untangling the emotions of rage and anger. It's a journey. When we follow the spiral, right? We follow the spiral. So we put out a fire. Where's the next fire? Where's the next fire? Where's the next fire? And we go deeper and deeper and deeper until all the fires are put out, right? And then part of our mastery when it comes to, mastering, our darker emotions, our internal world, is being able to stay connected to deeper truths, right? To noticing when we feel frustrated, to noticing when anger is surfacing or rage, and we start to look at why. It's oftentimes when we've disconnected from that, when we've avoided, when we've been, maybe fearful to look at it, or too much time has gone on, that we're inflamed. The other piece that I'm seeing too, when I said the word inflamed, and I saw I saw a whole body go up in flames. Our whole body go up in flames. And when one of the dark goddesses, oh, there's so many of them, and right now she's not coming to my Lilith. Lilith, the rage that Lilith has. And sometimes, and again, this is like where we can dance with rage and where we can dance with anger. Because I'm just seeing how sometimes it can feel like we're so engulfed in rage and anger, but we can use the rage and the anger to transmute like a holy flame. We're burning away everything that no longer serves us. So sometimes, then there's a couple pieces coming in around this, but sometimes it's like the holy flame, when we're engulfed in the rage, when we're engulfed in the anger, it is like a burning away of the old, a burning away of the old. And I want to go back to the group clearing work, and I want to go back to, because this is actually, we're kind of moving into another piece in terms of, it's almost in that place where a lot of women feel this when they're on the edge of like life reinvention, like the old life just doesn't feel right anymore, but they've put it off and they've put it off and they've put it off. And, maybe for years they've kind of avoided looking at deeper layers, and all of a sudden they're engulfed by rage, right? And they are engulfed by this holy flame. And we can use that holy flame to burn away the old, to completely burn away the old. And so it's, again, the message that's coming through is that anger is not bad. It's not wrong. It's always teaching us. It's always working for us as a sacred ally. It's not anything to be afraid of, because it actually wants to work with us. So when that happens, anger even then is this, and I'm thinking of like Kali is like that destructive force that can like burn it all away. We've had enough. Right? We have had enough. And I'm just seeing I'm seeing Kali, goddess Kali, and the bones around her neck and the flames in her eye. And she's asking, haven't you had enough? Haven't you had enough? And so the message really that's coming through is, where have you had enough? Where have you had enough? Draw the line in the sand. Where have you had enough? Draw the line in the sand. And sometimes what happens is that we start to go, part of the anger, and again, there's so many layers to this. I could create a whole program just on anger. But where we've talked ourselves out of our own standards and our own expectations, and we keep telling ourselves why we need to wait a little longer, stay a little longer, avoid a little longer. Right? And the invitation from goddess Kali with the flames in her eyes, bones around her neck, right, is like, haven't you had enough? We just need to know we've had enough. That's it. And sometimes it's like we look for the proof or the evidence or whatever it is to tell us, you know, why we've had a, why, let's see here, what will justify our rage? What will justify our anger? But this is an invitation, and it's a call from, like, not the place of the logic, but a deeper knowing of, it's time to draw the line in the sand. The journal is going to take you deeper into this too. And again, we're traveling the spiral. And I feel like this is going to start to open the door for a lot to get moving this week. So please share in the group if you need to. Anger is an interesting layer. I mean, if it feels like something personally you need to reach out for, you can definitely do that. And so we're going back to Goddess Kali, who I like, love. Yes, and she's saying it's a very important time for us to get comfortable with our anger and to get comfortable with our rage, especially as women, if you're called to step into leadership, which I truly believe all women are leaders. Because the more comfortable we can get with our rage and our anger, and allow it to be a guide, and allow it to, there's this piece where it's about this justifying. Like, it's like we really want to be very cautious around where we allow the external world to manipulate us out of our feelings and out of our perspective, where it gets twisted based on where somebody maybe doesn't have the capacity to understand our emotional world, or they don't want to have to deal with our emotional world, or it works for them to keep us feeling stifled or held in a place that works for them, or to keep us feeling limited. And this, you know, we see this on a bigger scale, is about dismantling all of the societal conditioning, all of the systems, right, that have kept the human spirit suppressed. So we're feeling this like big time globally right now. And I truly believe this is the decade of truth and freedom and liberation, which the dark feminine is all about. So no more justifying, right? No more, it's like there's no more proof needed. No more proof needed. You are validated in feeling what you feel. And you need no permission to move forward, to draw the line in the sand. Okay, I want to go in. How are we doing for time? It's funny how fast this all goes by. Okay, so I want to go and I want to just look at, it just feels like there's something energetically I can do in the space of this group to untangle. So let's go ahead and look at what, there's something that, there's a block that wants to come up. It's like we're like a lasso around the neck. I feel like that might not be the right like word for that, but it's like a rope around the neck when it comes to speaking our truth and having our truth. And I'm feeling this rope like really tight around the neck, and it's almost like it's so tight that like our faces are like red, like about to pop off, because we're so tired of being like noosed in our truth. Noosed, I don't even know if that's a word. Well, we'll go with it. But so tired of having that rope around our neck. And it's funny because I think what I'm seeing as well is there's a contradiction in terms of how much truth we have that wants to be shared and spoke and expressed, and how tight the noose around our neck feels. And it's like tighter than ever. So it's like something has to happen. Something has to happen for us to be able to relieve ourselves. So I want to go and look at like, what is I'm just going to ask in the Akashic record guards. And first of all, we're moving into your records naturally open as we pop into the Akashic field. You connect into the Akashic field. But as we move into Akashic record work, I also want to make a request too, that the Akashic records of everyone who's on the call today and everyone who'll be listening to the call in the future, please be open. And if this works for you, you can just silently say yes. And then so for everyone who'll be listening to this call in the future too, that applies to you, and you can say yes as well. I just want to make sure I got that piece. And let's go ahead, and then if I clear blocks rooted in anger, what am I looking at? Okay. Well, the piece that's coming up is a fear of rocking the boat. I'll look at what's coming up around that, but a fear of rocking the boat. And the other piece that's coming up before, and I haven't like picked up the block yet and untangled it, but the fear of rocking the boat. And also, what are your judgments? And this is a little bit of like where we start to get comfortable with that wild woman, with the bitch energy, where it's like, where have we judged other women who have rocked the boat? Like, what are our kind of like deeper judgments around, women who take a stand, who rock the boat? And I don't know necessarily that this is like, if we look to like an icon that we would feel that, but what if it's more towards like a family member? Maybe like a sibling or like a parent or like a friend, right? Where they've rocked the boat. So just noticing what you notice about all of that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at what is showing up. And I think what I'm picking up here is, so there's a curse coming through, but then also, is there a vow coming through? Okay. There's a vow. Wait a minute, just wait. Is it a vow of silence? It almost has both, a vow of silence and a vow of suffering, kind of together. But anyways, a vow of silence and a vow of suffering. And then a curse. Okay, so, and then which one should I look at first? Which one would be more applicable? The curse or the vow? Okay, are they both, okay, so are they separate? Do I separate these out? No, they're kind of together. Okay, perfect. Okay, the vow that's coming through, and I don't have necessarily, again, a past life, kind of like, I like to pull up like kind of like an experience that we can all connect to, but not necessarily be specific to each person, because we're doing this in a group format. But the very first thing that I picked up was around, it has to do with like the feminine priestess lineage. So it's kind of like all, throughout like the planet, it was really dangerous for a lot of the priestess teachings at certain points in history to be shared. And so a lot of those ancient priestess teachings, a lot of the priestesses were sworn to secrecy as a way to keep the priestesses safe. But also what it did is it kind of like it broke up the community. It broke up like the lineage and the community of the priestesses, in a way where a lot of their sacred knowledge and those deeper truths and wisdom, it couldn't be carried forward, right? It kind of essentially like it broke it down. Like, don't speak about this. This is dangerous. We have to like take this underground, and it'll only be for a select few, right? And so we have, different priestess lineages, and some like the Mary Magdalene lineage really speaks to some people. For other people, it's Isis. There's the different lineages, and so there's a few reasons and pieces why I'm seeing this coming through in such a beautiful, powerful way. Is it's that we're seeing the emergence of the emergence and the need for the ancient priestess teachings at this time, for the wisdom, and I feel like this will really speak to Cynthia. I feel like this will really speak to you, and all of us for sure. But and working with women too, this is a deep piece that I've seen over and over again, where it is like the awakening of our sacred knowledge and of our sacred wisdom. And it's not in a book. It's like it's wisdom held at like a DNA cellular level. It's like an ancient remembering that's held in the core of us. And oftentimes, and it's like it's our feminine wisdom, right? So it gets like shut off even in our society today, where we tend to value kind of like more masculine approaches to deeper feminine wisdom. But it exists within us. And so there's this invitation by clearing this vow of silence. And I had no idea this is where this is going to go. And we're already at noon. So just give me another 10 minutes. And if you have to go, that's totally fine. But what we're doing is we're unlocking this deeper sacred knowledge, this deeper wisdom, the ability to tap into it, the ability to hear it, the ability to, depending on where we're at in our journey, but to share it, right? To allow it to come up in these spaces of truth, right? In the collective where it's needed. And I know sometimes when we start to, when we disconnect and disengage from deeper sacred truths, that's also really connected to anger, right? Because it's all about being free, be our wild woman, right? Free in the fullness of our expression and the full expression of who we are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask that this vow that's being held, it's if you're here, this is for you. So I'm going to ask that this vow be cleared in all of our records, right at the point of creation, backwards and forwards through time, through all spaces, realities, timelines, and dimensions, and that it be transmuted to divine love and light and then released fully back to source. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. And I'm feeling like, just like the way that I'm seeing it, I'm saying feeling because I feel a lot too in the records, but is that, where there was like that breakdown of all that ancient feminine, like wisdom and truth, where it got kind of broke down and disintegrated because we had to hide in secrecy for our protection. I feel like what we're clearing out with this vow is it's like all these little pockets of like our wisdom, our sacred knowledge, these ancient codes that exist in our bodies. Instead of them lying dormant, it can actually wake up and it can start to connect together and start to weave together so that we can awaken to new layers of our sacred knowledge and of our wisdom and of our truth. So go ahead and just start to feel, let's go ahead and you can just through the top of your head start to see all of these ancient codes and symbols, all these ancient codes and symbols coming from source, all these ancient codes and symbols starting to kind of like magic work its way through the vortex of earth. Right? So allowing yourself to just merge with these codes. And then right at a cellular level, just starting to see all of this ancient activation, your cells just starting to dance with this sacred knowledge, with this remembering. Breathing in, letting it swish and swirl through your whole body. A beautiful and deep remembering of your true power and potency as a sacred woman. And you have truths, especially, women with, I believe all women, but depending on where you're being called to be of service, this ancient wisdom, it's yours. Wisdom is wisdom. There's no book, right? So it's your wisdom, your truth, your sacred knowledge. And it's about us getting to know it and cultivating it and sharing it where it feels good and timely, and knowing that your truth isn't wrong. It's actually very needed, and it might look different, right, to most, but it's very, very needed. All right, I'm going to go ahead. Let's see here. Chat. Tears of relief are flowing. Oh, they sting back from being held. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome. Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to untangle this curse, and that'll complete today. So, and then I really recommend everyone doing that journal. I know last week I said, you know, do the journal where it feels good, even if it's once. This anger piece here, this that feels really, feels very, it would be such a beautiful, generous offering to yourself to support yourself with the journal and get all those 3 journal pieces in. I think it would really allow all of us to go deeper in this process. The curse. Let's look at the curse. So a curse, I always want to start by saying a curse is never like a witch cursed you, like not in that context at all. It's usually where, this is interesting, where anger or upset energy has been directed at us and where it really wasn't our fault. But what happens, oh, this is that manipulation part. But what happens is that we go through a certain experience with another person or sometimes a group of people, and that anger is being directed at us. And usually it's like over time, we're kind of like, wow, I don't think I'm responsible for this, but this has been going on for a while. Like, it's like kind of got me questioning, like, is this my fault? Maybe I am responsible for this. And that's where the energy of the curse is able to take root as a block. So let's go ahead. I want to see, so the curse, so let's just pull up what the collective story is. Well, first of all, the first thing that's coming through as, and if you're drawn to my work, you're probably highly sensitive. You're probably, you know, and by highly sensitive, I mean, you know, intuitive or empathic. Like, you probably kind of like see, sense, and feel the world around you a lot more than perhaps others do. But that it's not our job to take on the collective energy right now either. And if you feel like you're doing that, expressing it is going to be like expressing it, like through art, through like dance, through like whatever medium is going to let you express it, to open up your goddess channel and like let it express and transmute. But I'm getting the sense that it's like, okay, here we go. So and there's some inner child patterns around this where it's like we have felt that it's like our responsibility to like carry the burdens of others or carry the pain of others or carry the trauma of others. It's not. So part of what we're clearing out and to see where this curse ties in is to really untangle where we're taking responsibility for like the emotions of others and being able to create clear boundaries. As we move into more of the womb work, we're going to root into the womb space, into the cauldron. And that actually becomes a really potent space to ground into that solidifies our boundaries in a really powerful way. So we're going to get there. Now, this curse. So let's see here. Okay, the curse is interesting and actually it's not really that interesting. But what I'm seeing is this is kind of around the whole like realm of like a witch burning. And I'm seeing like a whole bunch of people like rallying against. The way I'm seeing it is I'm actually seeing, well, this is interesting. I don't usually see myself as like the person who's being persecuted, but I'm actually seeing like lots of people who are angry at me and they're like throwing rocks at me, and I'm like scheduled for like a witch burning. And it's kind of like where my my power and my voice and my my magic, right? It was threatening to the community at that point. And there was no reason for it really other than to tear a woman in her full power down. Okay, so the curse. So I just want to go ahead. It's interesting that it's coming through is like that's like me, the way I'm seeing it. It's harder for me to read. I don't necessarily like it. So I'm going to turn it so that I can see it as more like a movie. There we go. Okay, so So let's see here what else is coming through, because what happened is that this woman who's being prepared for the witch burning is starting to question who she naturally is, what her power is, what her gifts are. She's questioning it, right? Because why would these people be so enraged by her very presence if there wasn't something intrinsically wrong with her? Right? So instead of staying like really rooted in her truth, and the way that this woman is coming through too is she's a little bit younger. So maybe didn't necessarily yet have like the inner, like internal, like foundation to really root and hold her truth. So instead of rooting and holding into her truth, right, that could be very hard to do when faced with fear, when faced with a group of people. There's a lot going on in this picture here, and part of what I'm seeing too is like where we go against ourselves and who we intrinsically are, our natural power, because it is a threat to the status quo, because it doesn't often make sense. It challenges people in what they know to be true about themselves and the world around them. So where we often go against ourselves, or where we've been in circumstances, where we've been in situations, maybe where we might have been in the future, where showing up in the naturalness of who we are, like, and this is kind of like naturalness of who we are. To me, I get like the archetype of like Aphrodite, right? She knew who she was as a sexual woman, just in her naturalness, her power. And of course we have a whole range of what that can look like. That's kind of like what the goddesses really represent, the full range, right? All those archetypal energies that we have available to us. But it's just this kind of like who we intrinsically are when we're rooted in just who we are as women, in our potency, in our creative power, in our beauty, just who we are, right? And where society projects onto us, where that's like a threat, or where that makes them feel insecure, or where it's shameful, or where it's wrong. So there's a lot of wrapped up in this. I could honestly we could probably go another hour because it's such a big piece. But I want to go ahead and I want to ask the guides to clear right at the point of creation any curses that have been created as a result of any woman who's on this call, any woman who's listening to this call in the future, where she had just shown up in her natural, sacred feminine power and was a threat to another person or a threat to a community, where any blocks were created because of that. I'm going to ask that it all be destroyed right to the point of creation, through all spaces, layers, timelines, and dimensions, and that it be transmuted to divine love and light and then released fully back to source. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and so it is. And this is how we create that feeling of safety. And I'm going to kind of wrap it up now, because, what I love that came through about that is the internal energetic foundation. We create the safe and sacred spaces. Containers like this are definitely, it's like an energetic container that lets you drop into supports you and holds you as you drop into some of these deeper pieces. But also it's like, this is why the journal becomes so important too, because it's carving out and creating sacred spaces to drop in and do the deeper work. As we drop in and do the deeper work, our internal energetic foundation, right? Our inner root system, it grows so strong. We just naturally start to feel so safe and so held, right? And it actually is what, as we root in and we do this deeper work, it is actually where we start to step into new paradigms. And when we step into new paradigms, we start to untangle and unravel ourselves outside of the patriarchy, outside of the illusion, outside of the matrix. It's where we start to root into a new paradigm of prosperity, right? And so I'm just going to pause for a moment. And as I wrap that piece up, I just kind of got this sense that it was complete. So take a moment. I'm just going to let us sit in this space. If you're still on the call, everyone's still here. Amazing. And just receive and just let the work kind of just integrate. So if you want to do some breathing, if you want to bring your hands to your body, just kind of gently rubbing your thighs. Maybe you want to have just a couple drinks of water. Taking a breath in through the nose, down into the womb. Just a cleansing breath, bring it up and out through the mouth. And let's take a breath, and we'll take the breath down to yoni, down to the pelvic floor. So taking a breath in through the nose, down to the pelvic floor, and up and out through the mouth. And we'll do one more breath. And we'll just bring this breath into the stomach and out through the mouth. All right. So I'm going to thank the guides, guardians, masters, angels, teachers who have been a part of this experience today, knowing that the clarity, the healing, the intentions, the activations, it's all going to unfold to come into completion to support you. And the door between the worlds is now closed. And so it is. All right. Thank you for being here with me today. I'll see you in the group, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.